Alright, back from the dead, episode 43. So I've been promising for a while that I would have been sharing the scene. Um, I need to prepare it a little bit, and now that my personal life is, back on track a little bit more, I've been streaming on and off, obviously. I'm hoping to finish the season soon. So, I want to share the scene, and I thought, well, we do everything live. I'll finish preparing it. I'll comment stuff, last inspection of the rig, and all of that. And it's an odd hour to stream for me, which means Europe is off, but there's a handful of people, so it might be a little bit of an AMA if you're on the stream. As I said before, you can ask anything, mostly anything. Well, you can ask anything, and I might reply to a variety of questions. And I got music in my headphones, which is not typical for me while streaming, but this is a chill stream after all. So the last episode, I got everything exported and re-imported, and the guides checked out. Like I could build things, guide it, move it in place, and all of that. It was pretty good. I was actually quite happy with that. So what I want to do is actually bind things and make sure that I have enough to do bindings, and use it as a test, and if that works out, actually share the scene. So all these components are now under their own separate hierarchies, and okay, no, I did not want that. Sorry, just took me a second. Okay. So I would like to reorganize these the tiniest bit. Which means now foot global, ball and legs, geo. I would like to reorganize things a little bit. Yes, please. So whatever we want to call this is a character entity in, I guess, in some game devy terms. I've often called it an entity at work. But it's basically because it might be something other than a character. It's something that's rigged, right? So like, don't really need a great name for these. It could be anything. Let's call it ball and legs. Now under that, something that I do like to do is take away the geo if I'm trying to group things, but yeah, that's view sensitive. I like to have something for the rig and something completely separate for the geo. So with that done, so I haven't got to finish season 1. Is the IKFK switch seamless? I think, what did we do on these ones? Shooty? That's a good question. At this point I've forgotten a bunch of things. So this is in guided mode. Let me see if let me see. I think we did a blend for this one. So does the leg global have control and in parameters? So, well, that makes sense. That's got the roll. That's the up vector. Right ankle. Okay. I did do a blend. I'm pretty positive I did. Did I expose it anywhere? So when you say seamless, do you mean like when like the IK and the FK are in separate places, when you toggle one it matches the other? Because if so, that requires stateful events. I actually show how to do that with a mix of callbacks and script nodes in the pilot season for the IKFK of the pedals. So the rig itself can blend pretty well, rotationally. I am sure it can at least. I will need to find where I put that control. Probably almost certainly in the leg control and in parameters. Yeah. So yeah, there's an FKIK blend, which is pretty good. If we seamless, you mean what people call auto matching? Yeah, that's stateful. So I don't like stateful things in the rig. I like them to be in the tools. If you look on my YouTube channel for the callbacks playlist, I show how to do that. So that when you change a parameter, you can manipulate the rig to actually switch to that state. Yeah, I'm a strong proponent of stateful things to like that stateful things in a rig be moved to tools and not to the evaluation graph, which ideally you want to be forward only and free of cycles. And something that's like forward only, free of cycles, and can like instantaneously be evaluated accurately needs to be stateless. So if you need to switch seamlessly between two different things like FKIK, you need to control the sources of the graph, and that requires state. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you want to know how to do it, yeah, pilot season scattered over a bunch of episodes for the pedals, or look for the callbacks playlist on the YouTube channel. So now I got geo and rig separated the way I want them. I think I have things turned off. Now binding this one is like, it's gonna be pretty simple. Let me also save a new scene here, because I'm done with the component cleanup. So ID13 was a good ID. Yeah, we can just call it binding geo. Doesn't need to say that it's for testing for now. Now, do we want to talk about deformations just yet? Maybe not right now. I want to do, I like very badly want to do a stream about deformations actually. So anyway, now this should only be affected by the God node, and I have control and guide. Now this is the part. So I say preparing the scene, but I'm actually doing a lot more than that. I'm probably, okay, might as well explain, well, or at least do separate bindings. Okay. Well. So this is not true bindings, but this is on the ground. Resource you will recommend, I definitely need to go through. I need portfolio pieces that will help me land an entry-level rigging tools job. I've exhausted quite a bit of. Okay. Oh man, if I'll be at SIGGRAPH, I'll definitely get in touch. So, well, I might as well answer that. I mean, it's a chill stream. Before I dig into that. So someone chat saying, I'm a computer science undergrad and very new to rigging, learning on my own, wanted to ask what resources I recommend. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Now there's one thing that I quite like. It's like people. I find that people teaching something they know very, very well, that and if they have been teaching it frequently, of people that have been teaching something that they have truly understood recently, I think they make for the best teachers, which is freshness of experience and all of that. Learning rigging, it's like, man, it sounds like pretty bad, but I've been rigging since before I had IK, right? not like IK already existed in Softimage 3D since, I don't know, tempted to say 93 or something like that. But I started rigging maybe in 95 semi seriously, and I'm a software architect, so I've never watched rigging tutorials and stuff like that. So I like the rigging dojo guys. I've done a couple things with them. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get money from them. Brad is a really good guy. I like them, but I don't know what their introductory material is. Um, I would definitely say do things. That's so. Do you? Because coming from computer science, what like do you have any idea of what kind of rigging you want to get into? Like, do you want to get into tool development or actual creature rigging, and and the scripting and all of that kind of becomes accessory to the creature rigging? So give me some info, and I'll just very like I'll give you a couple minutes to type in chat, and in the meantime I'll go over what I want to do here. So I've opened something called bindings here, and now what I want to do is, or rather what I like to do is to completely separate, even in a simple case like this, the skeleton from the actual controls. I think it's appropriate for a number of reasons, right? Now, I don't want this to be the Deformation stream or anything like that, um, but I wanted to get that, out of the way. So, ignoring why I like it and, why I think it's a good reason, which it might or might not be, um, in the simplest of cases, it's reasonable to say that you can get most deformation done with skinning and shapes. It's not all of it, not to any and every degree of quality, but you can get a lot done with just skinning and shapes if they're done well, right? Um, and the other thing that you often want in crowds and games and so on is like very often the control rig then gets transferred to the skeleton and it gets rigged differently for IK in the games or in the or in crowds, so you need cycle blending, or it gets baked for like as you go further away for loads, it gets just pure FK. So there's quite a few reasons to have a ghost rig, to have just the skeleton separate from everything else. So with bindings, I'm gonna put stuff in there that connects the rig to the geometry. That's why they're called bindings. They're not a particularly alien concept, like they're pretty common, like in shader bindings in example, things like that. So we'll put it between rig and geo. Now, not gonna say more than that for now. It's good reasons to do it. I might as well do a little bit of it. So the first thing you normally want is something that tracks the word position, and that depends on what you've agreed with the animators that's gonna be done. So very often, like the topmost node in something like that, that gets hidden and it's kept as a global override for the last minute. And you agree with the with the supervising animator, the lead technical animator, whoever it is that you work with, to establish that bridge between rigging and animation, without which you are doomed to fail. Once you have an agreement, you go like, okay, that control is gonna determine where in the world I am. So, let's say that we don't want a global override kind of thing, and we're okay using the main node. That's gonna be our first bone, right? And that's kind of your center mass projected on the ground. It's like it's not necessarily, well, it's not really gonna be center mass as that most, but it's what we tell the animators. Look, if you want the character to walk like that, I don't like that, but it's because we have the guide on. We'll see what happens later. Move that around and make it turn and whatever in the course direction, and then do the body balancing with the one above. So the first thing we need is I'm like digging my own ditch here. I know I'm not gonna be able to share this thing by the end of this. So What am I looking at here? I'm trying to think how many joints do I want. I think that for what we have here, I mean, we're not gonna have any bending or things like that. All we need is the center mass on the ground. If that, then we probably care like for the center mass of the body, and maybe we care for something else for direction. It's not uncommon to want two things for crowds. It's, you know, depending on the system. It's like it used to be a thing. It's kind of common to go through the spine into the head or something like that. So like let's say that we do it for, you know, because we feel we should. No, it's whoa, no, do not like it. I did not want IK. So I probably, let me see, create joins, create IK handle, yeah. Variable bone radius, that's okay, so I did not want that. I think that by just deleting that, I think I'm okay. So let me get something in the bindings. Like, that's the other thing, like the bindings don't necessarily need to be divided the same way the components are. In the simplest implementation, you can have these bindings as the whole body binding. So the components might provide their own transforms, they should. And then because those things might need a further layer of interaction to be appropriate for deformation use, then we put them in there. Let's keep it simple for now. And let's just say that, oh, I did not want that, but whatever. No, definitely did not want that. Okay. So, let's go kind of game, I guess, with these. So, God on them, let's say that we can just call this ground. Then these will be node. Oh, we capitalized the any node. We're camel casing that. Not a fan. I don't know why I did that, but so body, yeah, can do that. Let me correct. Don't even need that 0, 1. So these might be like, depending on your monitor resolution. I have no means to make this bigger, I believe. Might be super tiny for you, and just renaming nodes. Let me zoom in here so you actually get to see what's up. You know, god node now. So it doesn't get much simpler than that. Now what we want to do is like this scale compensation, probably don't care about it. What we want to do here is drive whoa, no, drive the base ones with this offset. Master offset control, so there's a buffer after that, which we're okay with. That's, you know, that gets guided. So part of the reason why I'm doing this is that I believe that if you want to truly validate something, like, it's got to be skin. You got to see moving, you got to move it 10,000 units away and all that stuff. Otherwise, you don't know if that rig works. It's pretty much that simple. Now, because this is the first, I can pretty much use that matrix right away. Oh, vanilla nodes only. I forgot about this challenge. I do dread the lack of custom nodes. So scaling is something to be managed carefully. In this case, we have a pretty simple model. Like, we could probably make this rig globally scalable. I'm connecting it for now. I would suggest that just I don't have a very good reason either way. But I will suggest that like you're careful with it. So don't connect the scale. Make it obvious when scale is not supported unless you mean to support it. Or if you connect it, make sure that in a rig like this it's pretty simple to deal with it. But in more complex rigs, make sure that you support it the right way. The other thing is there's a difference where non-uniform scale is a lot harder to support than this uniform, single scalar like 0 to 1 to something else kind of scale. Anyway, ramblings, don't need those yet. So the next one, center body, maybe without the animators, this is your thing. That's how you move the center body. So, and I'm gonna keep saving. I see a little bit of chat going on. That's cool. I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. So I'm trying to think what I want for the facing gear because there's two ways you can do it. But let's go for simplest. There's no strong reason to complicate it just yet. So that means all we have to do in the simplest case is get. So we want because this has been multiplied and messed with a fair chunk. We want the word position of these to be in the parent space of these to be driving it. The alternative would be these are not in a chain and they're all separate joints, which to be honest is also fine, but let's do it, with the matrix mode. So we want the word of these in the word inverse of that, I believe. Nope. Let's see how many bugs we'll encounter as well. Sorry, like there's not a lot that is exciting to talk about right now. Word inverse, like we've done these a fair few times, I believe, at this point. What I'm doing is grabbing something which is this one, it's word space, then multiplying it by the word inverse of that, which means it gives me the local frame of reference of that. That way I should be able to inject, unless I'm a little bit frazzled and I'm talking while rigging, while listening to music, but that should be really all there is to it. Now, inverse scale. So this is the scale compensation, which I don't think we care for at all in this case. It's a Maya will do. Like, you'll reconnect it for you, whether you like it or not, all the time as you use its tools. Sort of one of my gripes with Maya is, and I think I've been ranting about it enough in the joins, understanding IK and joins video, which is well viewed, so I imagine everybody will be seeing these has probably seen that one. I don't feel I need to rant further. Now, the point of this one is simply establishing a facing direction. That is, and if you're wondering how it's useful, there's a number of reasons why you might or might not want to do that. Like, most of them have to do with game and crowd engines. You could have something like a facing direction here and a facing direction there. And they're useful to know the twist of the body in crowd engines, in example, when you want actors to do something based on the body twist. They're definitely useful to gather the general direction of the animation. If it's for the ground, like it kind of expresses the intent of it. If you only get to do one of the two, normally the body direction is the most useful because it will be the most expressive for the animator's intent. And it's used by animation blending engines and by a number of other things. So it is not something that the animators will control. And because very often the skeleton is what you export or at least base things on to a large extent in mockup and crowds, yeah, that's why it's there. So if you're wondering why I had that, that's it. So I'd say that you don't really care about how far away it is, unless there's some vector for the velocity, you know, like if you had a global scale, maybe you would connect it to that so that it could suggest, or if you had proportions that you care about, some factor to to have some immediately accessible parameter for the engine to read, to know, you know, hey, here is a scale parameter of sorts that you should reference. You might care about that, then you will use some value like specifically for these. Otherwise, put it at 1 so that if somebody wants it as a vector, it doesn't need to be normalized. And that's about it. So that gets me the bindings for the body. We don't need more than that. Now, as far as skinning it, it's a super quick thing. One thing I will say about deformations in this case, it seems that like people have this idea that if you constrain something or you connect something instead of skinning it, it is implicitly faster. So notionally speaking, like if you skin every point here to one joint, that is the same, or in some cases faster, than constraining the mesh for this object to that bone or whatever, okay? Because when it comes to drawing these, like it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Like all those triangles still need to be transformed in place. So things like taking a geometry and constraining it to something instead of skinning everything to 0, making it faster, which is very possible that it can be, right? Like there's nothing like those are quirks or, you know, specific attributes or choices that you will find in the DCC application you're using, so Maya or, you know, or whatnot. A game engine, especially if it's an in-house and not one of the common ones, well, it doesn't really matter. Like a game engine or a crowd engine might have a different view of things. So I don't think that Maya has any particular optimizations for rigid transforms. So if it finds that all the weights in a mesh are skinned to just one transform, one joint, you know, then you can optimize things very heavily in that case, because it becomes a rigid transformation, and you know, all normals can be transformed rigidly, a bunch of things. But if it did, like, it'd be the fastest way to do things. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit rambling. I don't know if it makes a ton of sense. Maybe chat, let me know if it's of interest or not, or if it makes sense. It's not a big deal, but I guess the long story short of it is, like, don't be afraid to skin a bunch of vertices to just one joint rigidly, instead of complicating things by introducing constraints and direct connections and so on. Because what I care about in this case is that the relationship between the geometry and all of the bone elements in this hierarchy, as you know, if you were to plot this hierarchy of just joints, is that all of those relationships can be expressed in the deformers, and do not require that you look at the deformers and some constraints and maybe do some compensations and whatnot. So, with that said, I don't even remember the order of selections. Like, I haven't skinned with Maya default skinning in such a long time. Let's see if I can make a complete fool of myself. For some reason, it's also switched to modeling. Bind skin. Was it in the right order? Wow, okay. Right order of selection. Pure luck. So, again, I've ranted back and forth a lot on skinning. Ah, and thank you, you've reordered everything. I forgot to defend myself against that. I'm not gonna go over, you know, all of the rubbish that is just putting my scene with bind pose and so on for now. So that's cool. I don't think that the guiding, so... Oh, it's kind of cute. So did it... What did he just... Did he just skin it to everything? Let me check. So... Component editor... I haven't opened the component editor since the last time they rearranged these. Or is it even... Component editor, yeah, there you go. It's kind of where I would expected it to be. remember seeing a tweet about Maya default skinning and how NG skin tools should be packaged into Maya. So I should say I haven't really used NG skin tools much, almost not at all. I sort of know like internet know Vic, like the author, and he's a really good guy. And everybody I know that cares about, you know, skinning tools that cannot write their own is saying like you should be using NG skin tools. So yeah, not surprised. I mean, it seems so rigid skins. Oh yeah, you have rigid skinning. Like I didn't even remember that still existed. So components. Now the part that okay. So why I don't even remember like this stuff. So I want all components. Do I need to be in component mode? Like, okay. I did not remember that. So if I have nothing, like really, that's so stupid. The other thing is like, if like for people coming from XSI, XSI had a really solid out of the box experience when it came to skinning. So a lot of people that come from XSI, like when you're in Maya, just it doesn't make sense. Anyway, so body mesh shape, vertices. All I wanted to see was the influences. Anyway, so even Windows, like the component editor, it's just painful. Anyway, let us not complain too much. So it's picked up the entire hierarchy, which is not what I wanted, but maybe I had the wrong, like it picks up the whole hierarchy instead of just the one bone, whatever. So, oh, multi-selection. Yeah, I forgot that gem where I have to toggle off normalization. So, Jesus. Whatever. Will you let me? No, you won't. See, this is the stuff that drives me insane in Maya. Because I don't remember like where all the silly little buttons are without custom tools. Yeah. So it's normalizing the weights, which is an option in the skin cluster, is it? Anybody remember off the top of their head? Normalize weights. None. Don't. I just don't want you to normalize my weights. If I wanted, I would ask you. But yeah, I'm glad I remembered. So even with this is infuriating. All right, fine. Do it in post. We'll fix it in post. It's also somewhat painful. Only like I have two monitors and. Yes, it needs a vertex selection. You can input number in the yeah. I forgot that it needed a selection. It's one of those things where like if I have the mesh selected, just show me everything anyway. Now, why is it doing that to me? Jesus. Like hold this off. Anybody like off the top of their head knows why Maya is being dumb in this case? Because it's normalizing, so I will need to do this a million times for it to pick up a true zero. Like not a million, but quite a few. Say, I don't want the total to be 1.3. Normal disable weight normalization. Normalize weights. So let me see. Because I think that that's just all that does. Somebody was saying maintain max influences. I just want one, but this might be at assignment time. So I think that like skin normalization off just turns normalized weights off in the smooth skin attributes. Let's see. Now the part that, like, you know, it's just insane. That is so stupid. Select all the rows for an influence. Yeah, it's like that's what I expect these to do anyway. Let me see if the normalization does something else. Because the other, like, I could just hammer it to, like, just paint it to 1, whatever. Normalize weights. Disable. So I expect that to do, you know, not much. Yeah. Do I have to tell me, like, it's not that stupid? For values at the bottom, you can put them in the values itself. And the thing is, if you select the text like that, oh, thank you. Because I see, that's the thing, like, it's like it used to be, like, it's super wonky. Like, if you select in that direction, it doesn't give you the text box. Okay, now it's like it's kind of being yanked out of its own idiocy now, finally. Other than, you know, having a. So if I do that, now it's reacting to it. Whatever. Oh, now it's finally acknowledged the max influence of 1, whatever it is. Okay. Oh yeah, please. Yeah. It's this stuff, like, it's been like that since the very late 90s. I think, like, I don't remember, like, if the component editor was there in 1 or 1.5, but it's always been a mess, and I don't know why they don't fix it. Anyway, they're that freaking odyssey. Okay, so with this done, let me save another version. What I want to do is disable the guide and then play around with it. So let me make a note for myself. Like version 1, 2. The guide was still connected. The other expectation from these is that I can now run my silly little script. Like, it's this one, like, we've been using it a million times at this point. It's available on GitHub. I'm not gonna repeat myself. So now it should not be guidable any longer. Obviously, it's still driving the guide of what's underneath. And I actually do care in this case for X-ray, just for joins, please. Seems legit. Cool, the facing is changing, and I would expect these to do nothing. Which I'm okay with, to be honest. I mean, if you know, like, we're just doing a component the way it's supposed to be working. These might... We could make it affect the bottom of the sphere. I don't want soft weighting for now, not just yet. So I'm okay with these for now. Now I'm gonna go back to the question for a second. So someone was saying they did a course at Rigging Dojo, you know, focus on teaching you to approach rigging any model you may have, focusing a lot of anatomy and joint placement and cleanliness in your rig. They're good to start your journey in Riggy. Some feedback from the tutors there. So, like, generally, like, the people I know from Rigging Dojo and the people I know that do courses there, they're competent. Okay, so I can say that much. Not having done the courses, like, I don't know if the like individual curses are good. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of like joint placement taking an early place in rig design and things like that, but you should not take that to heart because it is extremely common in the VFX industry to have a very strong focus on that. So rigging dojo is actually quite reflective of what you find in the industry and what you might expect it to be doing when you start. Like what I do from first principles is not terribly common anyway. Um, and the person that asked the original question was saying, I feel the need to start out being extremely comfortable with putting together rigs in a traditional sense. When with experience, I have a stronger sense of what really constitutes rig. I like to move on to creating those workflows. Yeah, look, all I can say is rig a lot of stuff. And I know these might seem obvious, but do rig things, okay? And figure out how much you care about deformation and figure out how much you care about animation and performance. You can draw a reasonable distinction between the two. So for the aesthetics part of rigging, like some study of anatomy, getting a good sense of what constitutes good deformation, uh, the various, like if you've done CS, maybe you're familiar with signals and the frequencies and signals, like how dynamics and the movement in low frequencies work out and how the higher frequencies interact. I will say try to get a mesh and a rigged mesh, even if it's somebody else's rig, and get animation, get tough animation on it, and skin it and do it several times and build corrective shapes on it and stuff like that. That's what like developed the famous eye for detail, which is pretty ephemeral. There's no real definition for it. It's like that's kind of what comes with experience. It's the intuition of knowing, like looking at something and knowing what's needed, or looking at something and knowing what to correct, and knowing the difference between coarseness that communicates the right stuff and and fine detail and polished. That's kind of what the eye for detail is, and it will only come with practice. Designing a rig, I will say, find animators and get into the loop, like distribute your rigs and get into the loop of interacting with an animator as quickly as you reasonably can. If you're in school, or if you have access to one, to an animation school, or whatever you can do, it's like get in touch with people. Like it might be a while. Like if you start as a very junior rigging artist or rigging TD in a very big place, it might be a while before you actually get to choose what features go into components or into rigs. You might find that initially you build rigs from components that already exist, and you do a lot of skinning and polishing, or you correct bugs, or you prepare rigs for some stage. It's hard to tell. It depends on what level you work at, right? But nothing, absolutely nothing will substitute practice. And don't get stuck into doing, I guess my recommendation will be, don't get stuck into doing the one perfect rig that takes you 2 years that goes in your demo reel, when you could have iterated 6 or 7 or 8 deformations, like deformation workflows and models and whatnot, and like 4 animation rigs in the same amount of time. For your reel, that's a different thing. I mean, if you're a CS graduate and you can put together tools and stuff like that, that does carry some value. Anyway, so that part done. That is now the guided. I would like from there to go down to the legs. So a relatively common thing will be from your body mass to the legs, getting hip kind of bones that go down that way. If you keep a hierarchy, if you care about hierarchy, from like if we cared about, if this was a proper biped, like a human-like biped, you wouldn't get away with something this simple. Like you will probably have a hip, and then you be into the spine, and from the hip you will get the hip to leg stuff. I don't want the sphere to deform just yet. But I will say that a couple diagonal bones going that way, I wouldn't mind them. We can deal with that. Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime, really. So, I've been at this for a while now, haven't I? Yeah. It is a chill stream after all. Let me get myself some music again. Cool. So, I am so not gonna get to distribute this scene by the end of this. It's become the Deformation binding stream. Whatever. So, okay. I will want to start from there. Now, there's a bunch of things. No, I did not desire that, Maya. Damn you. And because of there clicking something, it's like it's done whatever with the radius. It's so dumb. But I wanted to start from these. That is so... Maya, you're so spiteful sometimes. I wanted to start from this joint and go out to that. And if I duplicate that, what happens? Okay, no, it doesn't... Because sometimes it could decide to add some parents. It's probably added that to the skin cluster because it's the same hierarchy. There's so like it's so dumb. It conflates graphs and tools with whatever. Let's not make these a complaints stream. Let's be constructive here. It's like, look at that. And he won't undo it. We shall endure. Anyway, and we'll connect that to something soon. So I don't know why I'm doing these. I guess it's hard to reason about things if they're off in space. Whatevs. It's fine. Well, I know. Thank you for the sub. It's appreciated. I've always said, you know, it's unlikely that I'm ever gonna make any money from Twitch or YouTube because, you need to hit $100, and you know, it's I don't do anything for subs. I don't have custom emojis. But there's been enough subs actually that I've had a Twitch payout. So after I don't know 2 years of Twitch and I don't know how many hundreds of hours of stream, I did get $95 from Twitch. So thank you everybody. I will buy something for my daughter with it. And she will thank you too. So, got that. Now I would like to connect something, whatever it is, coming from the top of the legs and going there. That is not the guide. So I think we're done with the God node at this point. The other thing is... So don't care about that. I don't care about the size of the joints at this point. What do I care about? Don't care about the leg global. So for now, I want the top of the leg. So they share... Actually, I'm silly because it should be pretty easy for me to do that because I got everything to work. So this deform, like this is normally what I would have in here, and it's what I'm about to do. And if it's well done, the connections for all these things should come from there and be fine as they are. And these basically are just transforms, right? It could be a single panel with a bunch of matrices, and we'll be done with it. how do you export your custom nodes in your production? If it's a production with rendered animators, installing them is going to be a problem. Um, so facility life, right? If you're talking about big VFX shops, it's like whatever, like Weta, MPC, Biolam, whatever you want. It's there is a ton of plugins in any one of those pipelines, right? You have environment management. So animators don't start Maya by opening a shell and typing Maya. And what they get is vanilla Maya, and then they have to, manually load things. You don't even have like static locations for those things. Normally, you have some sort of environment management and CG supervisors or pipeline supervisors or discipline developers, whoever it is in that facility denominated person, they compile these collections of, hey, we need this version of that thing and this version of that thing, and that interaction, a bunch of things, and that's what animators run through a script by going set environment to this job. If you're let's say you're in Weta using only a shell working on apes 2. I haven't worked at Weta, so I don't know if it goes this way. It's for the sake of example. You will go something like job dash, apes 2, and then app, something like dash app Maya, and then you will type Maya in the shell. Or you would have a GUI, like in, place I worked at, two places I worked at, like you had a GUI where you chose those things. You can look up Res, R-E-S. Res is pretty popular, and it's a resolution, environment resolution platform. It's pretty good, actually. And other places have proprietary ones. I know at least 2 or 3 places that use Res that have hundreds and hundreds of people on staff. Anyway, so with that, is this going to go horribly for me? No, miraculously not. So we appear to have been quite disciplined. Now, there is one thing I don't like, and I need to look at these. Let me see, where does that go? So let me pin the crap out of these before I lose it. That's set to 1, so it should be reasonably safe to do that. This is why I like binding as a way to check things. So I have something leg, L, ankle, blend matrix. So I've been using these as deformation, as boards rather than as actual deformation joints. So this thing, which is supposed to be just for skinning, is actually contributing to the graph evaluation. I do not love that one bit. So this is being driven by a hierarchy, and it is then offering a strong opinion to the rest of the component on what should be going on there. Do not love that at all. So I like this stuff. I like the stuff that gets skinned to be well decoupled from the rest. So we could choose to keep those in there. And that's a bit of a component change. So I might need to do an export import from these after fixing it. Man, I got myself into a rabbit hole doing this, but at the same time, I should have exported the scene as it was, which I still have, so I can still do that. So let's see what we have here. Now, these don't have anything going out, which is cool. So let's see what's in here. So this is driving, see these bones, I can't reparent them somewhere else, because that will break the encapsulated evaluation of my components. I absolutely do not love that. If I just parented them here, then I would have to do a little bit of maintenance, which isn't too bad. they were kind of diagnostics, and then they took the place of actual operations. Anchor rotation blend. No, I don't like it. I'm gonna fix it. That is not appropriate. So it's only the level 5 joint that's going out. So I'm getting the word from that. Which involves... See, the part I don't like about this is that the hierarchy here now has a significant impact on the nature of the component. I would be okay if those were in the output, the same of like we've taken some license with the output, like in the God node, but even then, it shouldn't be contributing. So anyway, let's fix it instead of belaboring. Reroll. I don't know what that is. So I got one, and this is not, so this deform is not doing anything, right? This is word space. So this is receiving a translation and rotation, so it's actually pretty important. And this is the one that's producing a matrix. Now the good news about this is that I should be able to use these connections and do good work with it. So this becomes a compose, like this could go out to the joints and become a compose. Oh, okay. Somebody typed out Ruro, and yeah, so Scooby-Doo says, oh man, it's a long time since I've seen Scooby. I'm in the middle of a conundrum. It is a rabbit hole. So let me see if I can quickly... I have a bad feeling about this. It's like that, like the depth of the rabbit hole I'm about to get myself into. I might choose to... I'm gonna patch it over for now. So this is SRT. So what they're actually labeled correctly. I'm okay with how they're labeled. I'm perfectly fine with how they're labeled. They cannot be output, because for something to be output, it cannot feed back into the evaluation graph, right? It's like the output is, hey, these go out to nowhere else. They only go out to other components. Like, that's the idea of having a clear output boundary. They can't be re-entrant into the mechanics of the component that you're developing. So this deform thing, like, it makes sense. It's not like it doesn't. It's like coupling the deformation, like some local deformation output with the component itself makes sense. It's like I've done it that way in some pipelines. I am gonna say so they're just plain mechanics for this thing. They don't need to have a parent. They're not guide, they're not control. I can leave them called like that for now, but what I want is a clear output that I can trust. So chain end is there, and that gets blended. So this is not even... This is not even giving me the... From what I understand, the form joints... And so Harshad was saying, from what I understand, the deform joints are just a joint destination of a component. They can have a direct connection to the bind joints, more or less. So don't get me wrong. Like as I said in my rants, it's like the fact that they're joints should not. Like it's for visualization. Like it's convenient. That's the end of the story. They could be replaced by matrices. You would have zero issues. Joints are completely superfluous the moment you don't want the special attributes like joint orient to mess up your tools. The name is also correct. It's SRT, which means scale, rotate, translate. So it expresses the fact that I'm just using them as transforms in part of a chain. They contribute to the mechanics of the component. Now the name deform, because I'm now doing this single binding thing, is probably misleading. This could be called mechanics and it might be a better name. To go out to something else, I don't want the guts of my component untouched and unmediated to go out to something else. Now the end of the leg. So this is kind of an output in its own right, but then it keeps working because it also deals with the addition of this control to get the ankle blend to the foot. So now what I'm struggling with is like, do I allow for the form to output, like to be like in an interim output, or the proper way to do things is like if you want to well, not the proper, but a way to do things is if you want to output, it's gotta be an output, and you can have more than one of these, by the way, because if we start converging all the ports in there, this is gonna become a bottleneck because of the way Maya works. If we have 8 ports in there, and then we go out somewhere else, it doesn't matter. The parallel evaluator will still choke there and then redistribute that. So I'm not loving having to spend so much time thinking about this. It's one of those things where like you should just go like, oh, let's do it. So replacing these with something else, it's like the thing that joins, like DAG items give you is an implicit inheritance, the way the transformations are propagated. So if we substituted for diginodes, then we would have to add our own matrix multiplications, but that's about it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave that code as it is for now, but it's kind of the form output. So comment expressing confusion about the fact that it's kind of a pre-out, but it contributes to the mechanics of the component, which means this is why I prefer having just the the raw transforms and dealing with them. It's like, beside the fact that it makes it much more like, it makes your outliner more compact, it's it prevents implied behavior. It's anyway. So we don't mind the choke, like we'll get to profiling. I'm not gonna go from the guts of my component out to something else. That is a bad idea. I refuse to do that. But nothing actually prevents us from exploiting this hierarchy further, since we dug our own hole. At least let's make it a comfy hole that we dug ourselves into. I could add a matrix array here, or I could add 3 different matrices, but if I add the local ones, then my life in having a game style compatible hierarchy becomes a little bit easier. So I will want the global of these, and I will need to do a multiplication to put it in the right space, because it will need to be in the space of that, and that's okay. But then these and these I can have as the local matrices of these DAG items, which makes a little bit more sense with these. So anyway, at a minimum I still want the 3 matrices. Now the other thing I'm wondering is the chain end. The chain end might actually have an effect on that, whereas I like to have the end of the leg as it is like lined up like that, and then the foot separate, because it gives you like two kind of like it gives you two transferring through the ankle, which is extremely useful. Uh, this is totally not the sharing the scene stream. This is totally become the, you know, rationalizing the binding stream, but I hope the introduction doesn't put people off, because this has probably just become an important stream. Well, not just, but anyway. Yeah, let's do that. Now, if I remember the command to add attributes, that will be grand, but I don't remember it. So let me add a dummy attribute to these, and then I'm gonna grab that. See, no matrix, and no way to set it to array. Let's see. Sure, add it as a float. Nobody cares. So there, I should probably bring these in. So add actor, long name test. We can call it chain out. No, I don't remember. So matrix seems okay. Div0 I don't remember. The path is okay. I would like it as an array. Let me see. Like, really? That's how you look for a specific mail command. It's like PyMail has taken over all searches, which like it is such a pain in the butt. There's no inline help, is there? Quick help. Oh, command documentation. Let's see what happens. Nothing. Quick help. No selected command. Oh, Jesus. Come on. Oh, yes. See, these... Okay, these I like. This is good GUI. Like, this is good UI, actually. More general UI. So you can select something and you get all the flags. That is very good. Thank you, Autodesk. You got that one right. Now, if it was also searchable, and if it responded to character like text zoom, that would be even better. But give horse and mouse and all of that. Attribute string. Now it's the attribute type. Where's the array? DV is for default value. Don't care about the matrices. Don't have default values. Parent string, proxy string. Use this caller. Use this proxy. Use this file name. Come on. This is less pleasant. Enum value flow. Multi. Yes, I forgot. There you go. Let's see if that does it. Let me save. Syntax error. What have I syntaxed wrong? What was it? Multi wants true? And the type instead of matrix needs something else? Like his type like attribute type is a string, isn't it? Probably. And you matrix, like it's got double matrix and float matrix, invalid object or value. So okay, so what are the types? Internet, help me, because I forgot this stuff. Okay. Adapter command, there you go. So I want the float matrix because I know. Oh, so these. Okay, fair enough. Well, not fair enough, but this will be stupid. Invalid object to value 1. Jesus. Is it because it's already created one? No, that's chain end. Like I've done these a million times. Like even during the stream. Let me see if I can get singular. So okay, it does not like multi. Okay, it did not like multi-true. So this is the syntax. Add attr, long name, chain out, attribute type, FOT matrix. You need DT if you want a double matrix, but we don't care about those. We want float matrix. Dash multi if you want it arrayed, and that's it. And then, you know, stringed or not, you can just give it the path of where you want it. That was not a pain. And we want 3 items. Get me a third one. Thank you. It will work in selection if not given an object name path. Yeah, the object name path was never a problem because, you know, like this is where we wanted it. So the multi was my problem. Anyway, yeah, it's like this is the part where you basically see that I don't have a ton of dexterity with Maya, like vanilla Maya. I do my best, but it's that facility life, right? It's normally, this is not like if you work in the big movie kind of shops, this is not the state that Maya is in when you open it. So I always forget, and I've said it a million times, it's like matrix or X form. I think one of the two is pivoted, the other one is not. We don't care because we're wise in not using pivots, so I think that matrix like that would just get me the local. Actually, we can verify. So this has got 297 and it's got a slight rotation. This is 297 and it's got a slight rotation, so it seems that it's useful. It's at least not wrong. This was unnecessarily painful. So, we're getting there. No, I don't want to go off on a rant, so I'm not, because I'm gonna add stuff to the hierarchy. I don't even want to know what's gonna happen to that skin deformer. Like, I'll do the cleanup at some other point. Hello everybody, episode 43. Absolutely not chill stream preparing the scene. It's rather everything about how to do intermediate bindings and ghost rigs. And by the way, this stuff, like these rigs separate like that, it used to be called a ghost rig in like very early 2K. I don't think anybody calls it that any longer. And I do believe it's a gamey term. So don't go crazy like trying to look up the term and go like, oh, can't find it. It's a term for old people. Skeleton, create joints. Will you? No, I'm afraid of like misclicking these. It's like God knows what can happen. So I'm gonna put this crap somewhere else. Now my super big scare here is again what happens when I do that and parent it. Okay, it's not created intermediate stuff. So now I don't love the fact that you kind of need to know that this is word space and that these are local space, but there's no, like when you get a chain out like that, there's no reasonable scenario where you would have something where the top, like the way we do modular components, where the top wouldn't be word and the rest, you know, if you care about the local transform, the rest will be local. If you've seen my Patreon IK videos, like that might make more sense when I had a hierarchical output option or not. But anyway, so for now we consider this a hierarchical output, and anything that is at the top of the hierarchical output makes sense in word space, and the rest is in the local space transmitted from that frame down. Now, decompose. So these need some mold. Okay, let me see. What side am I working on in first place? So this is left. I'm gonna have to name stuff soon. So it doesn't really matter just yet where stuff is. The other reason why I don't like these things is like that you, like in here you never really know what the scaling is. So the other reason for having a clear output is that once you go out to joints, if you can avoid the negative scaling going out, like that's, you know, that's pretty big, because your average game or crowd engine is probably not gonna be happy about you having stuff that is of a different handedness than, you know, than something that was on the other side. They are likely to want the same handedness all over. I will also need to suppress the joint orients. These ungodly things. So, okay, that's all suppressed. So I don't, like, this is in the wrong place. Let me get that out of the way. So, leg output. Now, I want the mult matrix. And I want to, this is the same exact thing that we did before. So what we want is the parent space of it is exactly, so what am I looking at? Sorry, just it's taking me a second. So yeah, I do want the word inverse of the parent, which is, and they're gonna be not underground. Okay, sorry, it was like, it took me a second to make sure I had my ducks in order, my matrices in order. So okay, let's do it proper right away. This is somewhat painful. Okay, so I want this word to be, okay, cool, to be in the word like in the parent space of this joint, which is that one. Yeah, body, and whatever. Like this tab is kind of sacrificial, so I don't know why I'm being so precious about it. So it will be the word inverse of that. This is the part where it's kind of convenient to have a tag. Like it's quite a few nodes worth of difference with just the factory ones. So then that one we will want to decompose into scale, rotate, translate, or what have you. Maya uses translate, rotate, scale, so TRS. Sorry, track I really like just kicked in. Tell me I have not been broadcasting. Okay. I have not been broadcasting my desktop because I'm like, all of these would have been copyrighted. And I don't know if I would have had the strength to redo this episode. So we got that done. Now there's something to be said for having, that's another thing that I normally will do if these were, you know, me developing for, like, developing a pipeline, I guess, for a shop, which is having an actual TRS attribute as a compound, because these all matrix compose, decompose when, you know, what you want is a translation and a rotation, and they could be well encoded. Like, this is painful. Anyway, it's also like, this is not, like, this one is not a rant about Maya, because it's fair enough, to be honest. Like, everybody has differing opinions and wishes about that anyway. So did I bring in, yeah, I did bring in the right thing. So the second one is local, which means I can get away with just the decompose, and the third one will be the same thing. So join 2 is the one I do not care about just yet. Am I gonna, yeah, I'm gonna leave it in there for now. No, I'm not gonna leave it in there. Don't have stuff that you don't need around. I'm gonna take my own advice. input matrix, and might as well do the same for that. These don't need any multiplications because we've already transmitted local. So join 3 and join 4. Let's see if we got it right. Let me also save the scene and then bump the version. Not that Maya ever crashed on me live on stream after I hadn't been saving for a while. Probably shouldn't do the scale, as I said before. I'm gonna give myself some slack. Cut myself some slack, I guess. And hook it up for now. So okay, this doesn't seem to be in bad place, and our, you know, our riggy thingy is coming together. So, and this is all hierarchical, right? That's one of the points. Like, this hierarchy is kind of composing. So if you imagine your components as being something that you can bring in from a library, you go, oh, you know, it's a ball of legs. I only need the god node and the legs. But if you were a human biped, you will get, you know, the spine and maybe a hip offset thingy, and, you know, the god node will drive those, and those will drive the legs. So if the components can stand on their own, like, this is hierarchizing it like that. This is per, you know, creature or per prop or whatever. It's per entity is what I've been calling it. That is the main difference, right? And this hierarchy is necessary for a lot of game engines and crowd engines and so on, as well as generally good to have for the skinning operations. Okay. So, is it making sense, by the way? Because this stream is like, it's gone off a tangent, which I don't mind having taken. Like, I had to do it at some point. I'm wondering if it's still making sense for people to. And there seems to be, there's also a fairly long delay with Twitch. Sorry, gathering my thoughts for a second. Let's do naming, because these could go horribly wrong. If I start getting things wrong. So, Lego hip. Not great to have the component names like these, I gotta be honest. But for now I'm gonna... Well, it's not wrong either, I mean, but it's... Like, we're sort of like tightly coupling things, whereas this being per rig, you might want a different namespace, different naming convention. It gives you the opportunity to not have the component names intruding, which I think should be taken. But we're off the cuff here. Like, it's completely a cappella. Making sense in context if one is watching the whole season. Yeah, it's like, this is not something where you look at this episode like separate from everything else and you, oh yeah, totally get everything. No, I imagine it'd be pretty indigestible. Now, I'm also tempted to turn off, like, as I go through these, I'll turn off the guide for the leg and see what happens. Whoa. So let me see. Okay, let me check one thing at a time. Like, let me. Okay, so this is separate, and I will wait it. I will bind it to the leg for sure. Which is kind of like one of the things I wanted to get to. So yes, I am gonna turn off. I'm gonna turn off the guide for the leg. Like, not that it does, you know, it doesn't make a difference, but I'm not gonna bind yet. Or am I? Why can't I decide what's wrong with me? Like, I'm super in... Like, I'm not decisive today. I'm indecisive. No. So now... Yeah, it is not super wonky any longer. I mean, the guide is moving, but that's okay. That's normal. Supposed to. I'm gonna do the binding, like, this. Okay, so let me explain, I guess, why I'm so indecisive about it. You're like, it's not a big deal, right? The thing with binding is that I've explained the whole thing about limiting the joints and all of that, where you go like, look, to avoid the pop, you give it a limit that prevents that, you know, spike. And So what you need is for the geometry to exceed things a little bit. And at this point, I gotta give in to the fact that this is not a scene I'm gonna be sharing. Maybe I'm gonna stream again tomorrow and or the day after. So how long has it been? It's been a while. It's been like an hour and a half. So yeah, hour and 25 minutes recording. So the geometry has to be a little bit further on than that, and then you test the range. So this is where the binding is really important, because it tells you like how you should do these things. It also means that then the geometry becomes asymmetrical. Not to worry. I mean, our stuff is pretty simple. We can delete and move things around. I reckon to heck with everything. Let's bind it. Let's make it a thing. It's more or less in the right place. So, oh, I hate my life right now. I have intermediate stuff, don't I? I mean, I hate my life is maybe a bit dramatic. Yeah. No, I want edges. So, man, I don't even remember. What? It's what? Okay, sure. So with them, okay. These might be super hard to see because of the color choices. Like this modeling toolkit just, it was not edge selecting on double click for some reason. Opening the modeling toolkit, which I expected to be docked, especially when you press it from there, it just popped out somewhere else. Now edge selection is working again. I don't want the division, do I? It doesn't make sense just yet, especially because I have a good double up on the ankle. I think I can just get rid of it. Because if you get rid of the points, I don't remember if it's still the case, but things can go horribly wrong because my own reasons. Now, the other thing to do will be reorienting the bottom like the same way. Like the thing to do will be, you know, receiving a decent model from modeling to begin with. Yeah, the points are there because why not? Let's seduce another command, like it's what is it, dissolve, to get rid of the edges and the points attached, which is not bound to delete. Doesn't matter. So I'm just eyeballing these. I reckon that if the joint, like the what? If the general mass, the center mass of the selection is just ahead of the center of the joint, it's like once this is not quite straight but almost, this should be relatively going straight. Obviously for mechanical stuff you have different concerns in different ways you might want to do things, but for bio stuff your relaxed pose shouldn't be with things like locked out like that and in extreme pain. Now the part I don't like, but God knows what's up with that, is why is my pivot there? Rotate center. Oh, it's in object, which is probably whatever. Fine. So let's say something like that is gonna be fine. I'm gonna, oh, okay. So the stuff in there as well. Let me see what happens these days if I just delete the points. Nothing useful. Come on. That is weird. Okay. Sorry, I was getting some weird stuff with what my function keys were indicating. Now the part that doesn't make sense right now is why it would have done that. No, it's not that odd. Okay, it's just this the stuff up here is in. This is so unnecessarily painful. It's like. So why are you doing that to me? I want just this object, please. Again, I forget what the shortcuts are in default. It does not matter. Let me just hide that. Quicker that way. So this one, I would actually like to go more or less through the center. Like we're assuming this is not gonna be, you know, like this is something where we have slack. Like some biological model, not something where this is tubular and it needs to be perfectly centered and aligned. So this side we're gonna ignore. We're gonna duplicate that at this point, at some point. Now the next thing I want is for this to be bound. Actually, the first thing I would like is for you to go in object selection mode and stay there. Thank you. So those three are all I care about. And the mesh is that. Really? Skin, bind skin, that should be it. Now what we want to check, what I was talking about is, okay, so that's not enough excess. See what this is, like it's straightening up a little bit. I'm stupid, it's like it should have been the other way around. So yeah, the problem appears to be me actually. Give me a second. I'm gonna explain. So when I said excess, I meant that way. And I don't know what came over me, but yeah, it needs to be behind, not past the knee. So now that it's bound, like this was at 0, yeah. Okay, the eyeballing wasn't too bad. So you can see that, like if you have a slight bend, like if you have a pronounced enough bend, and you still have some slack to go straighter, and if you have this just behind it, like these basically will get you a straight leg without, you know, a pop that is like the strength of a pop that is perceivable. That's, you know, that's pretty much the trick. Isolate toggle, much easier to use. Yeah, I forgot about isolate toggle. Rather, it's like I'm at that moment where like you're trying to get fast through things, and the reality is that you trip and stumble, so you go slower. So I hope that bit made sense. Let's isolate toggle is geometry only, right? No. So I was hoping it was geometry only, but wait. It's not hierarchical. It is hierarchical. Okay, that's interesting. Seems to be. Anyway, thank you. So let's add that and toggle that. Okay. So the idea is there's some slack in here. So this chain can go straighter than, you know, what we had. Like this is the guide, but look at the bones, right? Like these QB thingies. So the moment you have some slack where the leg can still go straighten up a little bit, but not to the point where you get the pop. If your geometry has a less slack in it, that's what you get, right? You get a reasonably straight geometry, and I've eyeballed it. You know, ideally you might want to retweak things into submission and, you know, transform by the inverse, or if it's a truly organical model, normally you can eyeball it and you'll be fine. And that's it. That's the cheapest way to avoid the pop without doing soft IK. If you want soft IK without custom nodes, it's like nothing right off the top of my head, but my node to do it is free, so you can find it on GitHub. So that's what I wanted. The de-guiding went okay as well. Now I reckon I'm gonna do the foot with or without the binding, because I need to get back to work in like 10 minutes. And I really wished I had more coffee. So these things I've actually detested since we've had them. So for instance, they were there for visualization. Tell me that we're not using them so I can get rid of them. Yeah, we're modifying a component a bit, so I might have to export and re-import. Let me see. So the shape is instance, but that doesn't matter. Let's... Okay. I really do not like these. They're contributing to the graph? I do not love that one bit. So let me see. Oh, this is horrifying. So is it... Oh, it's just a shape. Okay. I'm okay with that. So okay, I've just instanced the shape under several transforms. Like the transfer, like this, for a second I thought this was the shape and I was like, how? Why does it even have a rotate? No, that's okay. So if I delete the shape, I should get rid of entirely too much. Why are you not deleting just the shape? Let's take it at the leaf level. So if I don't show, now I've selected the shape. I'm just kind of, okay, so that's fine. So that's cool. And now the other thing I expect is that there's no DAG presence. Like control should have things, shapes only on things that are controllable. So there should be no interference. Guide is easy to toggle on and off together with control, right? When you're guiding, de-guiding, it's very easy to toggle the two. Now you might even add it to your guiding, de-guiding script if you have one. Input and output, this is just transform. So at this point, like we get, and I need to shrink down some of these icons maybe a little bit because they're pretty overwhelming. And this looks okay. And it's not, you know, it's not amazing, but I mean, there's even a bit of... I reckon this is a bug. Unless... Do we have a bug? Nah, we don't have a bug. That's cool. So what is happening is that the geometry is off. It's eccentric of the... of where things should be when it was, you know, when it was bound. Which is okay. We can deal with that at some other time. The eccentricity of it, because it was all eyeballed very poorly, means that when you go forward, so you get that kind of thing. Whereas our deformation starts here, the leg is starting there. When you go backwards, you know, you can see that it's not doing, like, it's not related to the transforms the way we want it to. That is absolutely okay. We could even re-guide it to go back in. Having even a poor binding like this means that then the next thing we'll do at some point is connect the... What I'll be showing is how to connect the bind to the guiding mode, so you can guide things while swimming the bones inside the mesh. And that allows some nifty things where you can guide things, like toggle the guides off and, you know, just see how everything works by playing the animation, go back to the rest pose, you know, swim them again, to things. It's pretty useful and it scales well. Anyway, it's a tangent for another day. So I'm okay with what we have. Now my question was like, do I do the foot as well? I reckon I'm good for now. I mean, this has been going for an hour and a half. Do we have any more questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna call it here. And yeah, I'll have to stream tomorrow, the day after, and I'll do the full, I'll symmetrize things. It's like, I wish I had started the stream differently, because now people might not watch these through. But yeah. Yeah, maybe editing magic, doesn't matter. Do you have any questions? Hopefully, like, oh, the stream is like super choppy and broken on my monitor. I hope that was just Twitch's compression and not me. Say stream health is good. I have a question up top. How far up top? Can you give me a... Oh, there you go. I'm trying to think of more possible uses of containers than the current implementation. Do you know suggest cases if it has been used? Or is it practically best to make use of message attributes and containers if I'm creating my own componentization system? For example, I publish the input-output control the form as nodes to the container, and I found no easy way to access them, still working on it. Okay, so I've worked with containers a lot, and depending on what version of Maya you're on, that's going to be different degrees of pain. I would say 2018 and on, you're in good enough shape. Containers are pretty flaky and buggy, so if you know the parts, like if you only use the parts of them that work, you're gonna be okay. I will not abuse them. So there's a couple things that containers work okay for, but the introduction of proxy attributes like made proxy attributes better even for some of those, which is the fact that if you publish attributes in a container and you publish a node, so let's say I publish this control and I publish all the attributes that are on another node, when I select this control in here, you're gonna see all the published attributes for that container. Containers are assets there, depending on what version of Maya they were called one or the other. I assume you're talking about those, right? So for that, they're good because it spares you from tricks like having to use the same shape with the attributes in multiple spots. I think I've shown that before. I know a lot of people use it. Waffles was actually sharing it on Twitter a few weeks ago, I believe. It's a pretty nasty trick. It's okay, it works, but when that stuff starts participating in your graph level, the shape with attributes is pretty nasty. Containers allow you to have attributes where they belong, and then once they're published, it allows you to see them on all controls. Sadly, it's all controls, and the interaction with the anim editor, with the graph editor in Maya, yeah, is a little bit wonky. So some animators might like it, some might not. You might have a few bugs. It's not amazing. I almost always used the publish node to say these are the controls, right? Because what happens is that the thing I like about containers that works pretty well is black boxing. And I don't know if I've shown it or not, but I think we can do it. Like we can show it really quick. So let's say you're working on the lag global. One thing that does work well with containers is black box. It will collapse a lot of stuff in your attribute editor, right? So now, if you black box all your containers, literally all you can select and see in the outliner are the controls. So that I also like, and I think I'm already using it here, obviously enough, because I've just done a black boxing that did exactly that. Now, using it as the boundaries for the I/O, I would actually advise straight up against that, like way against it. It is gonna get you into so much trouble. So containers, as far as I know, I think, well, as far as I believe they were mostly originally intended for assetizing. They got them wrong several times. There were like some of the bugs or issues with the original containers were freaking hilarious. Now, have I undone the black boxing? Yeah, I think anyway, so now they're kind of okay, but they were kind of born for shaders, and there's a lot of stuff that you can still find in them that is very, like, clearly very shader centric. Oh, there you go, that's the one. But I wouldn't use them for the whole, beside like using a subset of their functionality the way I've just talked about. I wouldn't use them. I wouldn't push them past that. They're not they're not Houdini assets where you get so much more in the containering part. Like they're pretty weak. What else about them? That's about it. Now they're a little bit of a pain in the API, so you might have to mix sign commands and stuff to find things that are in them. But they're also hacked. Like when you look at the node editor for the containers, like some plugs will just disappear a lot. Like they will just like there are many plugs going in somewhere and they're vanishing. So it's stuff that Autodesk can see and do under the hood that was clearly like hacked in. Do not love it. So they're pretty hard. Like even if you know the topology of the graph that you expect and all of that, they're pretty hard to inspect. Some stuff is not great. But some other things like they're containering. So the membership of a container, it's just a hyper layout node, if I remember right. So you can find that hyper layout node by just inspecting connections, then find everything that's connected to the hyper layout node, and that's everything that is in the container in in OM2 form if you want to. That's how I did it. That's about it really. Things like if you want to catalog something, like if you have your output and input node, you're controlling the form and stuff like that, and you want to bookmark those, right? You want a catalog where you can have bookmarks and routinely retrieve those. Build your own convention. Like go like, look, it's on the component node or on the container node. I'm gonna add a bunch of messages in this order with this name, and they represent connection to these other nodes that give me stuff. Don't centralize everything into containers. It'll be painful. So yeah, might be longer than what you expected. I've worked with containers a lot and I've been through a lot of pain, but I like the idea and there's some good stuff to them, so I made it through. But yeah, limited use. All right, if there's nothing else, I don't think anybody else has anything else. Yeah, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna go back to work. All right. I have to revert to hand commands. Some of it you might have to, but you can still inspect the topology and glean quite a bit. Anyway, cool. Thanks everybody for watching. It's been a super long stream actually. It's gonna take a while to upload. Hopefully you made it to here, and hopefully you didn't miss out. But you're not gonna listen. Like if you missed out thinking, oh, he's just gonna save the scene, you're not gonna hear this. Anyway, cool. Thank you. See you everybody.